Hey everybody, TacticAngel here, back to talk about a little bit of news about World of Warships Legends. Today we'll be doing just a quick rundown of the May 2020 update and additional media coming out around that. The order here is going to feel a little strange, but it's the best organization I can come up with. I put some time codes down in the description if you want to jump around. Also, references to all the information contained in this video are provided there, with specific emphasis on anyone looking for the stats of the legendary tier ships. They are at the end of this video, though I'm not asking you to skip to the end. I worked pretty hard on this video, so you should watch the whole thing. Before we get into everything, I did want to draw your attention to those of you who are Twitch Prime members. As far as I can tell, that means an Amazon Prime member, because I definitely never paid anything special for this. Then you can redeem a code for access to the Tier 4 German battleship Koenig, and probably more interestingly, the permanent camouflage for that ship, as well as a week of premium and a handful of other goodies. This is going to be available until July 13th, so try to do that sometime in the next 2 months. As we talk about the update, there's actually a bit less to do here than usual, though you might call this the calm before the storm. And some of this information is going to be related to the Wargaming stream, and it's all just kind of thrown together based on topic. First, to get things out of the way, Tikana addressed the vocal group of folks who want aircraft carriers to be added in the game. Wargaming is still considering their options, and I think I have found the root of the cause for all of these questions. And I also want to propose a solution. In the realm of really, really good news, there are 3 additional maps that have been added to the game. They are Greece, Crash Zone Alpha, and Northern Waters, which I haven't played yet, but which is a map that seems like it's fraught with opportunities to embarrass myself. These maps are available for Tier 6, 7, and Legendary tier games. The update has also given us a lot of balance changes, and these can pretty well be summed up with just a few bullet points. Those are generally, if it was a Tier 7 cruiser, including premium cruisers, its rudder shift has been lowered by 10%, except the Kutuzov, but the Kutuzov did pick up a heel, and the Charles Martel does have the option of a heel in place of its spotter plane. All the existing cruisers that had a heel had their repair party recharge lowered by 20 seconds. These changes were intended to make high-tier cruisers a little bit more viable against legendary tier opponents. From the sounds of it, they will see how this affects their performance and adjust again if necessary. There are 4 other changes that those couple bullet points don't really cover. First, the Baltimore has been given a 27mm bow. This will allow the ship to bow tank pretty much anything that isn't a Colorado, Iowa, Sinop, Vladivostok, Amagi, Nagato, or a really scared and out of place Mutsu. Trust me, this is a fairly big adjustment for the Baltimore given the number of German and French battleships out there that it can now bow tank. Next, the Atago now has an optional upgrade, which basically sacrifices 2,000 damage and 2 kilometers of range to increase your torpedo speed by 14 knots. That's going to make it quite a bit easier for you to aim them and harder for them to be dodged. But yeah, I'm probably not going to do this. But this kind of thing is nice to see in the game, and hopefully we get to see more of it. And you'll find a similar option to this one on the Udachi as well. The Fletcher shells have been made just a little bit less floaty, so it should be easier to hit things further away. And if you're still having trouble, they also shaved 10% off of its reload, so at the very least you'll be able to throw more shells at the wall. Finally, no update is truly complete without a buff for the Vanguard. This time, we're not looking at stat changes, but she's picked up a reload booster. For the record, that makes me really want to play her with Jellicoe, so don't be completely surprised if you see a video on that. Also worth mentioning, though the Chapayev did receive a buff this update, according to the stream, Wargaming may be looking to revise the Chapayev's armor scheme, because she is currently performing very well. And surprisingly, we're going to touch on some miscellaneous game changes next. You'll probably notice that the ship fires look different in the game now. There's a lot more smoke and a little less fire. This isn't really a bad change, I kinda like how it looks, but still it hasn't changed my opinion about how much I like to be on fire. Ship commanders are now sorted by nation automatically. You may find it hard to find your resources in this configuration, but I will direct your attention to this area of the screen where you can hit L3 or whatever the Xbox equivalent is, so you can still see how many promotion orders you have, and so on. Any leftover rubles you had have been exchanged for credits, and Imperials that you had left over can now be spent only on the small Soviet crates. Since there's not an Admiralty section in the store, I do want to mention that you need to find these containers under the Containers section in the store in order to purchase those. Also in the store for credits, rather than doubloons, right now there are a bunch of booster flags, an assortment of camouflage, which is nice to see, and the 3 commander pack for 10.5 million is still there, which is a lot, but it is nice to have the option if you're trying to collect all the commanders. Next, we'll go over the rundown for this updates campaign. We're looking at a 5-week campaign for the Udachi, the first Tier 7 premium destroyer in the game. Based on the last day or two of playing, my guess is that a lot of you were pretty fired up about the ship because I have seen a lot of them. As a 5-week campaign, Admiralty will be back to its traditional 2,500 doubloons, and if you want to purchase it, they have released this handy image to tell you what you will get with or without the Admiralty backing for this campaign. As usual with these campaigns, you can expect my review of the Udachi this weekend, so you can kind of get my opinion on whether or not she's worth it. As far as the actual tasks you'll need to complete, let's quickly run through that on a week-by-week basis, starting, funny enough, with week 1. We start by winning a battle, then earn 10,000 XP, then you'll need to earn 600,000 credits, then finally earn 750 global XP. The nice thing about these missions is that they do not appear to be unmodified XP, so you can use flags if you want to burn through this as quickly as possible. After that, there are 2 shakedown trials that can be completed in a division or solo. Keep in mind, if you're playing in a division, you are actually helping out your solo numbers, but for all of these shakedown trials, you will have to play against human beings in tier 3 through 7 games. So no AI matches. Shakedown trial number 1 is to kill either 7 ships yourself or 18 ships as a division. The second is to set fire to ships 10 times yourself or 25 times as a division. Overall, I'd say this week is pretty easy to finish, given a couple of days of playing. The only thing that I have to say about starting fires is that you should remember that your go-to ship for this sort of thing is a cruiser or Royal Navy battleship, but you almost can't go wrong here. Week 2, the endurance trials get incrementally harder here. You see that we have to win 2 games, earn an extra 1,000 XP, earn an extra 100,000 credits, and an additional 150 global XP. Again, flags should help you make all of these tasks just a little bit easier. We have 3 shakedown trials. The first 2 you can accomplish either by yourself or in a division. First, cause 350,000 damage to enemy ships by yourself or 800,000 damage as a division. This is just a matter of playing, but since Shakedown Trials 2 is hit a ship 400 times yourself or 1,000 times as a division, the quickest way to accumulate both damage and large numbers of primary battery hits is to stick with the cruisers, favor high explosive, except when it really makes sense not to shoot high explosive, and hope for fires. My favorite low-level contenders here still remain the Omaha and Marblehead. At higher tier, the Atlanta is capable of some pretty silly numbers of main battery hits in a single match, though pretty much any light cruiser is going to do. So at higher tier, I'm thinking mostly Royal Navy or the higher tier Russian cruisers. The last Shakedown trial requires you to place in the top half of your team in 9 battles, which probably seems like the grindiest part if you're not playing specifically to grind to the task at hand. In week 3, basically you get the same increase that you saw last time. You need to win an extra battle, you need to earn an extra 1,000 points of XP, but you do have to earn an extra 300,000 credits this time and 200 more global XP. You also have an extra task here, which is 12,000 points of Commander's XP. Shakedown trials get a bit more interesting. Again, you can do this either in a division or all by yourself. First, cause 40,000 damage to enemy ships by fire, or 100,000 damage as a division. If you guessed I would recommend cruisers, other than Royal Navy cruisers, then you're probably right here. Though, this wouldn't be a bad mission to accomplish with a Royal Navy battleship. Next, destroy 10 ships yourself, or 25 ships as a division. This mission, and the next really, are mostly missions that you want to try to accomplish in whatever tier 3 or higher ship you feel that you play the best. The final Shakedown trial here is similar to the last one, but it requires a smaller number of games where you place slightly better than last time. With only 7 battles, you need to place in the top 3 of your team. In Week 4, Win 3 Battles is back. You'll notice each of the missions thereafter has ticked upwards as well, pretty much like we've seen in the 3 weeks previously. This is really where I think the grind is kind of getting real, and I think it's safe to say this is the hardest week for the entire campaign. In Shakedown Trials, we have 2 more Shakedown Trials that are solo or division, but I will draw your attention to how these are very close to mutually exclusive. First, you need to set 20 fires yourself, or 50 fires as a division, and the second is you need to get a total of 10 Citadel hits, or 25 as a division. While both of these are pretty doable, I just want to point out that all of the missions up to this point you could pretty easily work on 2 or 3, if not all of the Shakedown Trials simultaneously. In terms of the grind, it's unlikely that you're going to accomplish both of these things at the same time. Incidentally, this would probably be a bad week to play the Caledon, Danae, or Emerald. Also this week, the number of battles that you need to play well in has shrunk again, this time down to just 5 battles, and you'll have to place in the top 2 for those battles. And finally, in Week 5, things finally ramp down here a little as our endurance trials are basically the same as what we saw in Week 3. The Shakedown Trials are back to something that you can actually accomplish all at the same time, and those are, first, cost 35,000 damage to enemy ships by fire, or you can do that as 90,000 damage as a division. Second Shakedown Trial is destroy 10 enemy ships, or 25 as a division. And then finally we finish off with hit enemy ships 400 times with your main battery, or once again 1,000 times as a division. So there is no requirement to place there at the end, so if you really wanted to, you could pretty much just go out there in a cruiser, set everything on fire with HE, and this is probably going to be a really fun week to play Battleship. All in all, as I was reading this, I was getting a little bit concerned because of the ever-escalating difficulty. If it just kept going up, it would seem to be designed to lure people into a false sense of security, because I actually finished Week 1 on Monday, though I played quite a bit more than I usually do on Monday. Normally, with my schedule, I can complete these sorts of campaigns, and I tend to overestimate the difficulty of the campaign. But if you're on the fence about this particular ship, I'd wait to see if you can finish Week 4, which I think starts on June 8th, before considering Admiralty backing. As always, you do have the option of opting into the campaign at any time, and the rewards that you would have won are retroactive, so there's no reason not to do it that way. Though they have added a new option to skip several levels, but not all of them at once, you do still have the option of skipping 1 level at a time for 250 doubloons, so if you're getting close and you really want that Yudachi, there is still a way to buy your way to the end in smaller increments, but just like the last couple of updates, you do need every point of renown in order to actually earn the Yudachi for just the 2,500 doubloons that Admiralty backing costs. For those of you shooting obscene numbers of torpedoes at me in the last 2 days, as always, thank you for keeping the servers on. Finally, we come to the big deal of this campaign, and that is the introduction, or reintroduction, of the Legendary tier, or more specifically, the return of the Yamato and the first appearance of the Alaska and Grosser Kurfürst. These new ships are now researchable through a new concept in the game called the Bureau. My initial impressions of the Bureau are as follows. It's always nice to have a new way to get free stuff in the game, but the explanation for how the Bureau works is a little lacking, and I don't think I can fully explain it to you here, except to say that you probably want to hit X as many times as possible, and select everything you possibly can to speed things up, and log in at least once a day to keep the progress going on whatever it is you're doing. Logging in is actually good enough on its own. You actually don't need to play any battles in order to keep your progress going. There is an FAQ that I have linked in the description, and it is pretty interesting, but there is a pretty good chance that I'll also be making a video on this independently. For now, I think I just wanted to say first, you have to complete this introduction/tutorial, but once you do that, you'll have HMS Campbelltown, which is a Wix class Lend-Lease ship that the US sold to England. That said, this is a tutorial. I have a review of the Campbelltown, and suffice it to say, the history of the ship is considerably more interesting than her usefulness in the game. At the very least, it's probably going to take you at least 2 or 3 days to get through this initial tutorial, and I wouldn't suggest spending a lot of money on boosting your progress in order to get her. The FAQ estimate for how long it will take you to get one of these legendary ships seems to be anywhere between 25 days and 6 months. with the 25 days appearing to require a pretty considerable amount of credits and/or doubloons spent in order to achieve that. Anyway, I wanted to show everybody the stats as they are believed to be right now. These are all from screenshots from Wargaming Stream. I would suggest that you pause these screens if you want a little bit more time to look at the stats, because I may go through them just a bit too fast otherwise. First, we'll touch on the Yamato, which will look a little different when she re-enters the game. Things I noticed the most were it has a bit less HP, her turret traverse is actually increased to 40 seconds, which honestly still isn't bad considering what you're trying to rotate, and her reload was increased to 30 seconds, which is historically still pretty optimistic. Two things that you won't notice here that they mentioned in the stream is that they've reworked the Yamato's armor scheme, though no telling what was done there. Whether that is better or worse is something we'll just have to find out. But they also did mention that she is less accurate than she was in the initial test. Großer Kurfürst will enter the game as physically the largest ship in the game. You will see that she has a little bit more HP than Yamato, and she also is probably going to have the heaviest broadside of any ship in the game when she enters. That said, she is a German battleship, and the problem with German battleships is usually not so much gross firepower, but the ability to actually connect with it. Two other items you will note about the Großer Kurfürst is you will have the option of choosing between 406mm guns or 420mm guns, which is pretty cool. Also, the big Kurfürst does have a shorter secondary battery range right now than the Bismarck. Wargaming says that is to help preserve what makes the Bismarck special, which is nice, though it would be nicer if the Bismarck could actually hit anything with its secondaries. Finally, there is the Alaska, a US supercruiser or something pretty close to a battlecruiser that was intended to be built towards the end of the war. She comes with 12-inch guns, which means she's actually got bigger guns than several battleships in the game, though they are lower tier battleships at this point. One thing of note that you will not see in her stats is that she actually has a 32mm bow, which is better than she actually had on the PC, meaning that the Alaska will probably be able to bounce every shell in the game when she comes out, with the exception of the Yamato. As for which ship I probably want worse, I'll actually probably be starting with the Alaska and then moving on to the Großer Kurfürst. They did mention that additional ships are in the work, and considering the time frames involved in researching these, like I said, upwards of 6 months, I don't really want to get too far ahead of myself and say that the next ship after that I would get was Yamato, but certainly that is an option. In any case, that's pretty much the news on this update. Other things of note that I was able to piece together, we are going to see a couple of extra ships enter the game. One of them is the heavy cruiser HMS Exeter, and I look forward to doing a review on that ship. The Z-39 will enter as a German Tier 6 premium destroyer, and of course we also have access to the Krispy Kreme, which is a Tier 4 global XP ship, which I probably will do a review on, even though I'm probably not going to like it. In any case, that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you've enjoyed this brief rundown. Thank you everybody for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.